everyone, it's Allie and welcome to my channel. And today I thought it would be fun, since we are pretty much right in the middle of the year, I thought it would be fun to talk about all the books on my to-be-read shelf that I feel like I'm gonna give 5 stars. So I'm gonna be honest, I have a lot of books on my to-be-read shelf, and I'm sure all of these books that I'm talking about will not necessarily get 5 stars, and I can guarantee you that other books that I did not pull, I will end up giving 5 stars. Sometimes it just does not go as you expect, but just based on the kind of books that I have rated very highly in the past, I have a feeling that a lot of these are going to be favorites from me. And if you are new to my channel, first of all, hey, I'm Allie. I am a huge lover of reading. I also dabble in writing, and I have read a lot in my life. I kind of went through a slow period with reading throughout, my college years and my mid-20s, but now absolutely it is my favorite hobby. I really enjoy getting books at a cheap price so I can have an epic library one day. I definitely read all genres. I would absolutely say that historical fiction is a top favorite. I'm not always in the mood for historical fiction because it can be a little bit heavier. Sometimes I do just want to grab a pretty lighthearted romance or something like that. But I do tend to love historical fiction as well as literary fiction, just good stories for the most part, across all genres. If it's a good story, I'll probably like it. So first up, we kind of have a 4 for 1 because they're all in the same series. I did get all of these off of Book Outlet for probably like $4 a piece. And these are by Kate Atkinson, who is absolutely one of my favorite authors. I've only read maybe 3 or 4 books from her so far, but I have really enjoyed all the books that I've read. I think she's a fabulous author. She creates a very good story, so I would highly recommend reading Kate Atkinson. And thankfully, she's been around for a while. She's written a lot of books, and so I'm so excited to dive into them, but I'm kind of pacing myself so I don't read through them all really quickly. But all that to say, all 4 of these books are part of the Jackson Brodie series. I did read randomly like the 4th one in the series, but I am going to restart with the first book, and that is Case Histories. And then I've got 3 more plus the one that I already read, so I might just be missing one random one. But the main character in all of these books is Jackson Brodie, and he is a private investigator. And honestly, I'm not usually a big fan of like detective books. I am a huge lover of thrillers, but yeah, I feel like I get bored with a lot of the detective ones. But as I said, Kate Atkinson can just write so well. I love her character development. I absolutely loved the random book that I read in the middle of the series. So I feel like this will end up being one of my favorite series of all time. And I don't think I'll get through all of these during 2023, and I don't really want to. I don't want to rush it, but probably at least 2 I feel like I'll end up reading in the fall. Okay, so this one I've actually had for a bit. I was gonna read this last fall and I just never got around to it. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is a favorite by many, and that is absolutely why I put it in this anticipated 5-star rating stack. And I guess I had no idea what this was about when I heard people mention that they really liked it or whatever, but the general gist seems to be that this woman makes a bargain in the late 1700s that she'll live forever, but what she gives up is people remembering her. Everyone she meets ends up forgetting her, but then she comes across somebody who does remember her, and that's kind of the general gist of the story. So I believe that this is marked as a historical fiction, but I'm sure there's very strong romance in here as well. But I've heard from so many that they absolutely love this book, so again, a really nice fall read, I think. And I think I got some kind of special copy. It's very pretty. This one I have heard so much about as well, but I've been waiting to be in the right mindset, to be in the right mood for this one, because I have a feeling this will be a new favorite, and that is Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. And if you know me, of course I love historical fiction, but I especially love historical fiction that's set during the World War II era. I feel like some of my favorite books are from that time period, but I feel like I read a lot of books maybe a year or so, a year and a half or so ago that were set during that time, and I just kind of got burnt out of it because they do tend to be a little more depressing since it's World War II era. So I wanted to give myself some space from that time period before I dove into this book, but I'm itching to read it. I think I'm gonna get through my fun summer reads, but then probably come end of August, early September, this is gonna be top of my list. And I have read a lot of books from Kristen Hanna. She has a lot like Kate Atkinson, and some I like more than others, but the ones that she's written that are set in the past, I do enjoy very, very much. I tend to not love the ones that are set more in the present. They tend to be very sad, very emotional, just not quite my cup of tea. Like, I know a lot of people really love Firefly Lane, and then there was, I don't know if you'd call it a sequel, but like a companion novel to Firefly Lane. And that follows a friendship between two women throughout their lives and some illness and like man drama and stuff like that. And while I did think that those books were written well, I just don't enjoy those kinds of stories nearly as well as good historical fiction novels. So some of Kristen Hanna's books I absolutely love, and some I think are just okay. Probably my current favorite by Kristen Hanna is Four Winds, and that takes place during the Dust Bowl era, which I thought was fascinating because I really didn't know much about it. I also really, really enjoyed The Great Alone, which is set in more modern times, but it takes place in Alaska. So a very different environment than what most of us live in. But yes, very, very excited for this one. I'm sure it will at least be in the top 3 of favorites from Kristen Hanna. Okay, this one is intimidating. Another dark academia kind of book. A lot of these are a little bit darker, and I probably will get to a lot of these during the fall months. But this one is Babel. It is an arcane history. As you can see, I did end up getting this one from Book of the Month. And I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on this, that it is very like intellectual, academic. That's why it is talked about kind of in relation to dark academia. But it seems like the people who love this really, really love it. And the people that don't like it as much don't like it because it's just a little bit too intense. Like, it's not a light read by any means. So like the last one, I've just been waiting to be really in the mood for something like this. And usually I am during the months of fall, I would say. I'm much more into a deep read. And I won't read the whole blurb because I think this is quite a complicated story to even try to summarize, and I do want to go into it kind of blind. But it says it's a historical fantasy epic that grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as the dominating tool of the British Empire. So honestly, to me, that doesn't make me that intrigued, but I am definitely willing to give it a try. Hopefully I can get through it. But definitely let me know if you tried to get through this one and what your experience was like. Another historical fiction, this is by Diane Chamberlain. And I've only read one book by her, and I cannot even remember what it was called. I'll put it up on the screen. And it was a book that I kind of just randomly picked up at Goodwill. I like to get random books at Goodwill because you never know when you might find something that you absolutely love. It's just a great way to try out a new author or maybe a new genre. You can get books for just $1 or $2, so I would highly recommend thrifting books if you do like to own them like I do. But I'm excited about this one because it is set in the present when this was written, 2018 in North Carolina, as well as in the past, North Carolina, 1940. And some of my favorite books of all time are written like this, where there's 2 different points in history and you're following different groups. I don't know, I just absolutely love stories like that. So it's following Morgan Christopher in 2018, whose life has been derailed. She's taking the fall for a crime she did not commit. Her career in art is put on hold. But then in North Carolina in 1940 is Anna Dale, who is an artist from New Jersey, and she wins a national contest to paint a mural, but she finds herself in this town where there's prejudice and people are hiding secrets, and something happens to Anna Dale, and it sounds like Morgan in 2018 is going to kind of uncover what happened to Anna. So that definitely sounds like 5 stars in my book. I'm super excited to dive into this one. Okay, 2 more dark academia, and people always talk about these ones together, so I guess I will too. So the first is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. And then If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, I think is how you would say that. And from what I understand, again, I don't like to learn too much about books before I read them. I want to go in fresh. But I've heard that this book was inspired by The Secret History. This one was written first. But again, dark academia vibes. I feel like when people say dark academia books, these are like the first 2. that come to mind. And when I did pick these up last fall, I got them from Amazon, and I think I literally typed in dark academia books and these were like 1 and 2. So I feel like sometime in November, I'll probably do some kind of like trying to live a very dark academia lifestyle for a week. And these 2 books, along with Babel, probably will be the ones that I end up picking up during that time. But The Secret History says, under the influence of a charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at a New England college discover a way of thought and life a world away from their banal contemporaries. But their search for the transcendent leads them down a dangerous path. And I think that this one is like very similar to that when I did read the blurb before. So probably like Babel, I'll either love these or not like them very much at all. So I am a huge lover of psychological thrillers, but I feel like it is rare that I give one 5 stars. I give a lot of them 4.5 stars, but maybe something is not quite right. Like the writing might be lacking a little bit in my opinion, or maybe I guess the ending, or I don't know. There's just something that's like not quite great about it, but I really enjoyed it, and so I'll give it that 4.5 stars. I've heard a lot of good things about this one though, The Book of Cold Cases, and this is by Simone St. James. So I'm very hopeful that I will love this one a lot, hopeful that it will be a 5-star read from me. But once again, this book is set between 2 different time periods, so that's a big check mark in my book. It's set in 1977 Oregon and Oregon in 2017. And it's the classic, and I've seen this pop up more and more in recent thrillers. There is a true crime website. The person in 2017 runs one, and so she's finding out more, it sounds like, about this murder that happened in 1977. So this will be a good one to read during a cozy rainy night. This one I've been wanting to read for a while and just haven't reached for it, but I feel like I'm gonna love it once I actually dive into it. And this is The Time Traveler's Wife, and it's by Audrey Niffinger, quite a name. And I will say that this movie is one of my favorites, definitely one of my top romances, just a really beautiful story. So it'll be interesting to read the book after watching the movie several times. And this says soon to be a series on HBO, so I'll have to look into that. But of course, movies, they cannot have all the detail that books have, and this is a decently thick one, so I have a feeling I'm gonna absolutely love this book. And I'm not a big romance girly. You're not gonna see kind of the classic rom-coms in this anticipated 5-star read pile. I do like to reach for them every now and again. I think especially during these summer months, they're really fun to read just by the pool or whatever, especially because our lives are so busy. We don't have the mental capacity, most of us, to like get sucked into Babel or something like that. But with that being said, those books, just for me personally, are really never 5 stars, just because I don't mind romance in a book, but I just am not super into that being like the entire plot. But all that to say, I think I am gonna really like that book, because even though romance is a strong part of it, there's also time travel, and it takes place obviously in different times, so it's got that historical fiction kind of element to it. So I feel like I'm gonna really, really love that one. This one just seems like it's gonna be such a cute read. I'll probably end up reading this decently soon. I feel like this will be nice for the summer. This is the Jane Austen Society, and I don't know, I'll have to look into it. Was this made into a movie? I guess not, because this was just written in 2020. But it does say on the back, fans of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society will adore this book. And I didn't read that one, but I did watch that movie, and it was super cute. You can find that one on Netflix. So I did really enjoy that story. I do plan on reading that book at some point, so I think I'm gonna love this one too. Once again, this is set during the World War II era, but it's actually set just after it, which is nice, because I feel like most are like right in the middle of it, like 1940 to 1945. So it sounds like this kind of ragtag group of people. You've got a farmer, a young war widow, the village doctor, a Hollywood star. They're all looking to preserve and protect Jane Austen's cottage. And it says it's a charming and moving novel that explores the tragedies and triumphs of life, both large and small, and the universal humanity within us all. So I feel like this is one I'm just gonna read and be like, that was a nice book. Okay, just a couple more. I do have a lot more historical fiction on my shelf, on my to-be-read shelf, that I didn't pull out because I didn't want to like bore you to tears, because I feel like a lot of them do kind of blend together. So I do anticipate giving probably more of those 5 stars over the next year or so. But this one especially, I was like, I'm just so fascinated by this. I love the cover. I've actually not read anything by this author before, Elizabeth Kostovo. And this one is called The Swan Thieves, but it says she is the author of the #1 bestseller, The Historian, which I have heard a lot of good things about. But this one's pretty thick. I love a good, thick story. So it says that this novel takes us on a journey into the lives of the women left behind by the renowned painter Robert Oliver. So it sounds like Robert Oliver is silent, and his psychiatrist is trying to discover what his patient won't say, which is interesting to me. I'm a psych counseling person, so I love when there's kind of that element of psychiatry and mental health involved in stories. But it says, as the psychiatrist is pulled deeper into Oliver's troubled mind, he uncovers a tale of love, betrayal, and artistic obsession, and finds surprising possibilities in a package of 19th century love letters. So I think that this is one that maybe it'll take some getting into since it is such a thick book, but I'll probably finish it and just absolutely have loved what I read. And then last but certainly not least, we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. Of course, everyone is talking about this book. I grew up with Jennette McCurdy. I watched iCarly all the time. I think the same age as her. I think she's either 29 or 30. And I've seen a fair amount of interviews with Jennette McCurdy where she talks about this book. So I, of course, know basically everything that she's gonna say, I think, but it will be very interesting to hear it in her words. I know she talks about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of Dan Schneider, the Nickelodeon guy who was behind a lot of very famous Nickelodeon shows, Drake and Josh, Victorious, iCarly, and of course the abuse from her own mother, which brought her to title the book I'm Glad My Mom Died. So this one I'm sure will be quite moving and sad, but I'm glad she shared her story because I think people do tend to glamorize the lives of these Hollywood stars, and then you find out that they didn't even make that much money and all of that kind of stuff. So it is good, I think, that she shared this story. But all right, you guys, my battery's flashing, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. And if you did like it, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe. It really does help my channel out a lot. Of course, it ended on the last line, but let me know if you've read any of these books down below and what other ones I should have on my radar. Which ones get 5 stars from you?